Hello everyone, to those watching this video, I want to point out that it's not made for kids. It's for older fans and adults. So with that said, enjoy the fucking video! The branch line up to Brendem was getting too much for Edward and Broken to handle alone, so the Fat Controller made some arrangements and made Stanley a permanent addition to the branch line. Stanley was very happy with his promotion. He adapted to his new role with ease and helped out with any job he was given. Edward and Boko were very grateful for his help. He learned the routes fast, but Stanley still had loads to discover about his new branch line. So you were here before Salty then, Cranky?
It was pretty much more pleasant back then. No yellow on this and no on that, and certainly reminds me of a story nonsense.
Oh come now, Salty is great. The docks would never have been so organised thanks to his effort.
You know, ideally shunters would be professional anywhere, right? Not just here. I could work more peacefully had I worked elsewhere.
Where would you go, though? I know Knapford Harbour hasn't got enough spaces for you. I don't know about Arlesborough and the Little Western. I think ideal Brendem is the best place for you. Brendem, far as I know, is the busiest of all the harbours on Sodor. Brendem wasn't always the main harbour, you know. Edward had just arrived and had heard everything. I remember being told that the main harbour was meant to be at Sudbury, back when the line used to be known as the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway, before the North Western Railway. However, plans decided to head up to Brendem after a terrible accident. What happened? I don't know what exactly, but it was so severe that the harbour closed. However, the junction to the line is still there, but no one has ever went to see if the line was fully dismantled. Plus, no one didn't dare go down the line in case we disrespect what's left of said harbour. Stanley had become very intrigued by Edward's story. Every time he passed the junction, he was left wondering was it accessible. However, he did see remains of the old harbour by a siding at Sudbury Junction. He couldn't see much. He tried asking the other engines, but they just said what Edward had told him. Weeks passed, and Stanley decided to just drop it. He knew he wouldn't get far, but he knew a bit of its history. For now. One evening, Stanley had to take the last goods train up to Thomas's Junction. He travelled home light engine. He was soon back on his respective branch line. The journey was going well, and it just so happened that Stanley would pass the junction. But somehow, Stanley and his crew found themselves going straight towards the old harbour. Oh glory! Stanley wasn't going fast, so his driver was able to stop him, but to their surprise, The tracks went on. How come the points were switched? I don't know, but I presume it would be trespassers. Come on, we better investigate. Hold on. You mean check out the harbour? I'm not sure if we... Well, people put us at risk and not reset the point. Come on, if we find no one, we'll check the signal box. Carefully, Stanley crept onwards. And soon found himself facing the old Sudbury harbour, fully abandoned. Some tracks were dismantled, old trucks were all over the show, and cranes were very rusty. Stanley was feeling very uncomfortable. He was taken all back, being curious to see the harbour by himself. His driver stopped him, and he and the fireman went to look around for any trespassers. Stanley could only look around, but in front of his eyes were trucks that went towards the sea. Were those trucks part of that big... Stanley stopped questioning himself and stared. His face went into absolute horror. The trucks going to the sea had something behind them. There was a roof and a dome and a funnel. In the sea was the remains of a once living engine. Its corpse had been left to rust. Stanley felt sick in his boiler. The driver found no one and saw the fear on his face. No one's here. Let's go and alert the signalman. Stanley was glad that he was away from the horrible sight, but as he waited, his eyes were fixed on the track that led down to the harbour at Sudbury. His crew went along and eventually made it back, which felt like a century for Stanley. Zack knows nothing of the sort, but did see some boys venturing off the platform. Must have played with those points. Anyways, he's given us Jackson's shunter's pole to switch tracks. Word of Stanley's discovery soon spread, and the engines were left in shock and felt sick knowing that an engine had been left for dead for so many years. The Fat Controller decided to cut up the points to prevent events like this happening again. He also put signs and barriers to prevent people from trespassing, and he hired security people to prevent from someone breaking the rules. Stanley was silent for a good long time. He had loads of nights where he stayed awake to all hours, and he didn't say a word to anyone as he worked. He was lost in deep thought, but when he passed through Sudbury, his eyes were always fixed at what lays beside the station. He's also sure the engine he saw that was once alive, the spirit was always present, as he and the other engines passed by, watching them in action and wishing for that life again. I wonder if Stanley is right. Don't you?